Hi, I'm Chris Sarandon, and welcome to Cooking by Heart, where we revisit the vivid memories of the food we grew up with.
John Carpenter.
I couldn't believe the tastes and the flavors.
Lydia Bastianich. Hi, Chris. Susan Sarandon.
And more importantly, the people and the stories attached to that time in our lives.
You know, I've been dying to chop this up with you for a while now.
Yeah.
How would you chill your child?
This is a lovely chocolate macadamia nut truffle that has dark chocolate. You can get it in milk chocolate too. I prefer the dark.
Alice Waters.
I was the one, sort of like mommy dearest.
He'd order one side of the menu and eat that. And then when he was finished eating that, he'd order the other side of the menu and eat all of that. Emptied the kitchen.
Food is the thing. Come on. We know that.
My guest today is director-actor Nick Castle. In 1978, Castle played the iconic starring role of Michael Myers in the classic horror film Halloween, directed by his former USC classmate, John Carpenter, and was allegedly paid $25 a day. Castle's subsequent collaborations with Carpenter included his name being used for a main character in The Fog, co-writing the script of Escape from New York, and performing the title song of Big Trouble in Little China as part of the band The Coupe de Villes alongside Carpenter and their friend writer-director Tommy Lee Wallace. Castle then moved to directing, first with Tag, the Assassination Game, followed by, among other things, The Last Starfighter, The Boy Who Could Fly, Dennis the Menace, and Major Payne. In 2007, Castle wrote the musical drama August Rush that starred Freddie Highmore, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, Robin Williams, and Kerry Russell. In 2018, he had a cameo as Michael Myers in the direct sequel, Halloween. He has won a Saturn Award for writing for The Boy Who Could Fly, a Silver Raven Award for delivering Milo from the Brussels International Fantasy Film Festival, and the Korean Grand Prize for The Last Starfighter. I met Nick on a musical television pilot project called Shangri-La Plaza, which did not get picked up as a series, but we may discuss that as well. Nick Castle, welcome to Cooking by Heart.
Thank you for inviting me, Chris. This will be a lot of fun.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So let's get started with, I always ask, the first question I ask is provenance. And I know from a correction that we shared that you grew up in LA?
I did. Los Angeles area. My dad moved here in the 30s to be a choreographer in motion pictures.
Oh!
Yeah, he came from Brooklyn with my mom, and I was born right here in Los Angeles.
In beautiful, where in LA?
Was born right actually down the street from where I live now in Los Feliz, in East Hollywood. And then my parents moved to West LA, well, near 20th Century. We only just know our places near the studios that we're working on.
Yeah, right.
That was
right.
20th Century Fox, my dad. Then most of the time I grew up in lovely Bel Air.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So your dad was a successful choreographer in the movies?
Oh, yeah. In fact, can I show something here?
Oh, please. Absolutely.
Okay.
We do video, and for folks who are just listening, I'll describe it.
Okay. This is my dad with Judy Garland and Gene Kelly.
Oh, wow.
In the movie Summer Stock.
Oh!
So, yes, he was a great, a very well-known choreographer.
Yeah.
And, so, I grew up on sets from day one. In fact, I was in a couple of movies as an extra, like back when I was 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, really? Yeah. The little nepotism operating there, yeah?
That's right.
So first, we'll get into the whole movie background as we go along, but I want to know what it was like at home. So Dad was working in the studios. Mom was doing what? Was she a homemaker?
Mom was a homemaker, yes. Very traditional family, Italian Catholic family in that regard.
What was the family's original name? Do you know?
Casaccio.
Casaccio. And is Casaccio translated as castle, or was just an abbreviation?
No, I think it means little idiot or something. I'm not sure what it is.
Only you.
Little something.
Only you, Nick. And at any rate, so Mom was at home. What was the food like at home?
Oh, man. Well, she was a good cook.
Yeah.
And she got her inspiration from her mother, my mom was first generation American, U.S. Her family came over, in the late or early part of the 20th century.
Right.
With all that good cooking, it
Yeah.
just came with it. So, what I remember are, of course, and to this day, I can't stop eating pasta.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, the Italian red sauce, it was a staple of the house. And then, foods kind of, everything from chicken cacciatore type things to some of the kind of unusual things that you would make for special occasions that I couldn't take, like things like tripe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tripe, squid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have, horror images of my godfather taking the squid out of the bowl and eating it and squishing it in his teeth, and it's just awful.
Right. And he probably put on a show for you as well, right?
That's right.
Let's freak out the kids.
Exactly. My dad's only contribution to the cuisine was that I'm going to forget the restaurant. It was a very famous one back in the 30s and 40s. He went back and was introduced to the chef. He was given the recipe for a Caesar salad that he made.
Oh.
And it was just, it was very kind of complicated and great with the hand garlic around the wood, the wood salad bowl and all that. And it was delicious.
And in the day, the top-end restaurants, they made it with a raw egg.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, raw egg and the anchovies and everything else.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that from when I was relatively young. Yeah.
And that, a beginning dish in any restaurant I go to is my go-to thing to see if that restaurant's any good.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If they don't do a good Caesar salad,
Right. Done.
It's done.
Right.
It's done, exactly.
You're dead to me. Right.
Exactly.
We'll probably end up using a lot of these phrases as we talk about some of the films that we've both been involved with. But at any rate, so siblings?
I have one sister. I'll show you another little picture.
Oh, great.
My mom and my sister.
Oh, beautiful.
My mom kind of reminded me a little of Barbara Stanwyck, just in terms of her beauty.
Uh-huh.
My sister just passed away. She was 87 years old.
Oh, wow.
She grew up with mental challenges from birth. And so she was a very sweetheart, and I'm going to miss her now. But she's in heaven with mom and dad now.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully she's having a good time.
Yeah. So was there a lot of time, considering that your dad was working odd hours, oddly? I mean, certainly if he was working in the movie business. Did you guys spend a lot of time at family meals?
He would get home basically most of the time for family meals, my dad. But a lot of times he had to work late, and but he was, unlike the movie business now, it was all based and shot in Los Angeles. So it was possible for you to have a family life like it isn't, unfortunately, for a lot of people today.
Most of the people who work out of LA, yeah, exactly. They're traveling now. Exactly.
Yeah.
Conversation around the dinner table?
We weren't, like a highly intellectual group.
Mm-hmm.
We just enjoyed the day's events and recounted them, and a lot of sports. My dad was a big Brooklyn Dodger fan.
Oh yeah,
having been grown up in Brooklyn.
Right.
So when they followed him, as he said, to Los Angeles, he was thrilled. So he had season tickets, and we would go to the games a lot. So that was a lot of fun. So sports was a big connection, at least between me and my dad. Mm-hmm. The other person, actually, this was interesting, is that we had an uncle, my mom's brother, who lived with us.
Oh.
I had double adult male figures in my life growing up. He was a trumpet player and then went on to be a lighting designer for acts and things like that. I went one day to Vegas where he was lighting the show for Frank Sinatra.
Oh, Wow.
So,
what was that like?
Yeah, no, it was just very cool because even though I was a teenager back then, I still liked Frank.
Oh yeah.
Back in the '60s, I was rock and rolling, but still had to love.
Oh,
Frank.
but he was sort of the epitome, at least when he was, in his heyday, of cool.
Chairman of the board.
Yeah,
they call him.
Exactly.
Chairman of the board.
Exactly. Interesting too, because this occurred more. That is, having a family member living with you in that generation than it has certainly more frequently in homes around the country now. Because I know when my dad came here, while we didn't have somebody living with us, both of his brothers were in the restaurant business with him. And one of them lived literally upstairs of the restaurant. He was he was a bachelor, sort of, debonair kind of Greek man about town. And my uncle, the other brother, lived in the same sort of little apartment complex that we lived in. So we were around each other all the time.
Yeah.
And so the family was much more sort of integrated into daily life. That is extended family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a grandmother nearby, and another aunt, an uncle, my dad's side of the family. So, yeah. Right. And then we had our whole New York crew, because, not the whole family came to California. Right. So you would go back there and it would be like going to another country.
Oh, really?
Literally like going to another country. Because you had the grandparents that spoke Italian. Mm-hmm. Or I didn't have parents. I never met my two grandfathers. They passed away early. But the grandmas were great characters. And then aunts and uncles. And then all these cousins. It would just be wild. And
those events, did they often center around food?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. My grandmother was, I don't know if it's in your family too. The grandparents have to feed you. So even if you've just had food, they have to.
Right. Now, all my grandparents were, because my father was considerably older than my mom.
Yeah.
I was exposed to my maternal grandfather, but his wife had died. My maternal grandmother had died young.
Yeah.
As was often the case in those days when, there were diseases that occurred that, that had no response.
Right.
There was no penicillin.
Yeah.
And diagnosis was very much more elementary in those days than it has been, obviously, over the last, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But my grandparents lived in a town in Florida that had like 10,000 Greeks. So we would go there every summer, and I was surrounded by literally a little Greek enclave, not so little, sponge diving community in a place called Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Oh my God, how cool.
And it was so great. I took my kids there when they were young too, and they loved, we were going to go back now. We're going to take the grandchildren now.
Yeah, you got it.
At some point. But let's get back to these family gatherings, these scrums. What was the food like there? Was it different from what it was at home? More Italian, more?
Yes, I think so, but simple, still very simple. The pasta's always ubiquitous.
Yeah.
But the thing I remember about going back there is that anywhere you turn, you'd be walking down the street. I'd be going with my cousins, and they said, let's go in here. And it'd be like a pizza joint. Mm-hmm. And you go up to the pizza joint to get a slice and try that out.
Yeah.
And the guy that's feeding you is your second cousin from your mom's side. Yeah, this is Tony.
I love it.
Tony, this is your cousin Nick. So it seemed like anywhere we went.
There was a cousin, right? Yeah. Comes out of the woodwork.
Yes, exactly. But it was a little bit of that, going around, meeting people. Then I had like an uncle who was another trumpet player. He is actually a first trumpet player on Broadway.
Oh, golly.
A great musical, Guys and Dolls, starts with a trumpet part.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's right.
He's the one that did that on the album. He was feeding me one day, and he put ketchup on the pasta.
Oh, I've heard of this, by the way. But anyway.
Oh, yeah. You're not supposed to be Italian and grown up in that world think that's a delicacy. It depended on the pedigree of the Italian that you went to.
Right. And also, it's interesting too, because I did a live show.
Yeah.
here in Connecticut with Lydia Bastianich.
Uh-huh.
And Lydia, who has a television show on PBS, but she's also one of the partners and owners and founders of Italy.
Oh, yeah. I love that place.
Big market, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Lydia talks about, because when she first came here and they started a restaurant in Queens, I think, that a lot of the food from Italy, the ingredients, were not available here.
Yeah.
Which is why we got the kind of standard Italian spaghetti and meatballs. There were things that were just not available, and particularly Northern Italian cooking, which is where she was from a region of Yugoslavia called Istria, which was an Italian enclave. But then when the communists came in, they changed everything. Maybe people changed their names, and her family immigrated back to Italy, and Northern Italian food just wasn't available here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It was basically this red sauce gravy.
Yeah.
As Lydia calls it, and my friend Adria Trajani, who's a writer who writes a lot about this. So you would go back and forth, once a year?
It was very irregular, maybe a special event or an anniversary. It would be like when my dad could get off for any amount of time.
Right.
It would always be a big event for my family to come because my dad was the Hollywood guy.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
So, very, very exciting for the gang back there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was infrequent, but they're so memorable.
Yeah.
And, memorable because of the getting to see the tribe.
Yep.
And then, getting to be with the tribe. The food experience is there. I don't have a lot of memory of. It's more, I know more about, obviously what I ate on a day-to-day basis, which one interesting fact in terms of that is that I was always a big fan of salamis.
Ah.
In fact, every day except for Friday, because I was Catholic, you couldn't eat meat on Friday.
Yeah.
I had a salami sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
My mom would do the salami sandwich.
Right. What did you put on it?
Nothing.
Plain salami on bread?
Plain salami on Italian bread.
Ah. I like salami and mustard.
Yeah. That's a go-to thing.
Yeah.
But mustard, and then there's a tapenade is a nice thing to do. With salami.
Oh, yes.
There's so many good salami makers, now, and it's that's ubiquitous too.
Yeah,
Get some good stuff in Costco and various restaurants here.
Right, a sort of artisanal salami.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. So then you're growing up, okay?
Yep.
And you're around the movie business. Was it something that you felt like you were going to be drawn to from the time you were very young in terms of what you were going to do?
Yeah, I had, I would go on the sets. My dad eventually went into TV series. He would do things like the choreography for the Andy Williams show and the Jerry Lewis show and Judy Garland show, things like that. So I would go in the summers, help him just be a gopher, get coffee for the dancers, get him lunch so he could think up the next routine while everyone was eating.
Yeah.
That was a good experience. And what I got interested in is the director on those shows and moving the cameras and where the cameras went.
Yeah.
So early age, I was interested in that. I didn't do any early filming for myself. Wasn't as easy back then. I see that Steven Spielberg movie that he did about himself. And I go, yeah. He's the same age as me, but I never had that camera.
Mm-hmm.
And I never was quite as good as that little fella. Nonetheless, that was something. And then I got interested in performance, in singing. I had a pretty good natural voice. You can't hear it now because I'm coming out of a cold.
Yeah.
That was something I was interested in, being a crooner, I grew up in that transition between the 50s world of Sinatra and Dean Martin, and I'm kind of like a Bobby Darin character. That starts as Sinatra and ends up as being, into rock and roll.
Yeah. We're very similar in that regard.
Yeah.
Because I was in a rock and roll band when I was in high school, but at the same time was interested in jazz and, all kinds of music. Anyway, go ahead.
What did you play?
Drums.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I tried a little guitar and piano. I never was great at it, so I just opened my mouth.
Now, is that what you did in this band that I alluded to in the introduction?
as you mentioned, John Carpenter is a big old friend of mine, and he's the one that got out of the gate real quick from USC Film School, University of Southern California. Film
right,
School.
right.
And we're still close. I just went this last week to honor him as he got his star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood.
Yeah, I saw an item about that on the news.
Yeah. So we went there, we went and had some lunch, and then the three of us guys that are in the Scoop DeVille band went back to his house and practiced to see if we could still do the song, because I may be saying this out of school, but there may be a performance coming up for those fans of the Coupe de Villes who know us in the near future. We'll see.
Now, this is you, John Carpenter, and Tommy Lee Wallace?
That's right.
Yeah, because I know Tommy Lee he directed the sequel to Fright Night.
That's right.
I remember meeting him.
Yeah.
I just stopped by the set one day and we had a little conversation. He seems like a great guy.
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. He was one of John's best friends from high school in Kentucky.
Oh,
he came out here. Yeah. And after John started the film school, he came out about a year later and joined the gang. So I've known Tommy since 70. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what it was like at the USC Film School at that time.
I got there around 67, 68. And right when I got there is when George Lucas had left. And this is the beginning of any thought or possibility that film school would lead to a career.
Right.
Now it's like a giant stepping stone.
I have a stepson who's now in his 40s, but he was first at Emerson in the film program there. And he said, we would talk about film all through the night, and we would, dissect movies, and we were so passionate. And he transferred to USC. This was 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And he said, and all anybody talked about was getting an agent.
Exactly. And USC was known for that even then, even back then, there was a little bit of a thought that, you might get this job or that, but it was always known as the school that was industry centric,
Yeah.
Whereas UCLA, where Francis Coppola came out of about 2 years before that, was known as the art school. Oh, no, we don't want to get a job. We want to do art.
We want to do it, yes.
Suffer.
Yes, right. Yeah.
The film school was pretty neat back then. Even the design of the school itself, it was part of an old World War I barracks and stable for horses turned into
a studio.
Yeah, this very funky department for film. And it was very conducive just for discussion. And just like you're saying, you do have that, what I tell young people that come up to me and ask me how to get into the industry, I said, film school. Yeah. Film school is a very good place. Not only do you learn a lot, you want to learn the history of film, but that's where you're going to meet people that maybe you're John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Because John was very instrumental, as you read in the credits. He got me my first real good job co-writing Escape from New York with him. So that gave me a little bit of cachet and got me into directing eventually.
Yeah. That was actually my next question, but I want to sort of stay a little bit in the actual experience of what it was like back in the day when you guys were just students.
Yeah.
And talking about making movies.
Yeah. What was advantageous is that they had a couple of classes where the teachers had real connections in the industry. So not only did we see the movies by John Ford and Howard Hawks and people like that, but some of them came would sit after the movie and talk to the students, answer questions. And it was quite a thing when you think about it.
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't know how much of that is done anymore, or you're able to do that. That was great. And it felt like you were part of that world.
Exactly.
Because you were there.
Yeah.
And then, some of the students, one of John's partners on his first movie, Dan O'Bannon, wound up writing Alien. And a lot, Zemeckis was there, a couple years younger than me.
I worked with Dan O'Bannon.
Did you? On what? Oh, that's right.
I did an adaptation of the Lovecraft.
Oh my God.
Adaptation called The Resurrected. Yeah.
Yes.
It was a strange experience.
Yes, he was one of my favorite characters of all time, and I mean
real character. Yeah. How would you describe him?
Oh my God, I don't know. You know, he's one of a kind. It's like he was very eccentric. You know, he was a kind of a little gnome guy.
Yeah.
Always had a big scruffy beard when he could finally grow it. He loved people that loved him and didn't particularly love anybody else that challenged him.
Kind of, he was a selective misanthrope kind of guy. Yeah.
So he loved me because I just adored him and the people he was around. He passed away too young.
Yeah. He was having health problems when we were on the picture.
Yeah. He had Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
So he was in and out of the hospital all the time.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, Diane, I just heard from a couple of days ago. She's looking to try to get some of her home movies about him on DVD. So she was asking me who I knew.
Yeah.
That was someone that you don't want to have a conversation about his eating habits because
right.
Oh no, it didn't do well.
Yeah, exactly.
Eating at USC back then.
That I was going to say. That's my
Trojan Barrel. It was called. The Trojans, of course, are the nickname of the team. Trojan Barrel was off campus, and it was your Greasy Spoon, and the other place was International House of Pancakes.
Oh, of course. IHOP.
IHOP. You had to go to IHOP.
It was sort of gathering places for you guys?
Yeah, gathering places for the guys. And, I don't even remember going to the USC commissary too often back in the day. It just wasn't that good.
Right.
Now, of course, they have, all kinds of, it's like, I don't know, they have Italy probably there.
Oh, yeah. Listen, this is years ago when I took one of my kids to visit a college, my alma mater, West Virginia University.
Yeah.
We walked into the student union and there was a climbing wall in the student union, and there was a cafeteria with, varieties of things and healthy and, and a McDonald's. It was just,
it was crazy.
Oh man.
They just pamper these kids.
Oh
now.
Man. Yes, that's right. Back when we walked to school uphill, and it was uphill both ways, as my father-in-law used to say.
I love that.
Right. Well, after Halloween was such a big success.
Right.
Then was that the entree?
No, not for me, because I was the guy under the mask. Who give a shit about him, Now everyone loves me, evidently.
Right.
That's where we wound up seeing each other again at these horror and Comic-Con conventions.
Yeah, which are great fun.
You actually get to meet people that like your movies.
Yes.
Because who's going to come up and talk to you, except they're not going to come up and go, I hated that movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Come up and say, I loved you in this, and then get a little pat on the back, sign some autographs.
Yeah.
But you get to find out the fans out there.
Yeah.
When else would you be able to do something like that?
I talk about this all the time at these events when I do a panel or something where I say, you guys don't understand just how important you are to us.
Yeah.
Particularly with actors, because when I work in the theater, you have that experience.
Yeah.
Of that sort of symbiotic thing of you're in tune with what the audience is experiencing, and they're kind of on the ride with you and you feel it.
Yeah.
But you don't when you do movies, because you're hermetically sealed.
Right. Exactly.
So
also as a director, to have someone come and give you a pat on the back for something you did.
Yeah.
And put so much time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears, into it.
Yeah.
And you never know unless it's a hit, which most of mine weren't.
Yes.
If anybody ever liked it or saw it, for that matter.
Yeah, but obviously they did.
Yeah, they did.
How did you get the Michael Myers part?
As we mentioned, John is an old friend.
Yeah.
So I was following his career as he was doing stuff. I was writing and then trying to get my own pictures off the ground. I went down to visit him on the set as they were prepping it for shooting. It was very close to where I lived in Los Feliz, in Laurel Canyon at the time. And he was down there near Sunset and Fairfax. And I went to the set and I'm talking to him. I said, is it okay if I just hang here, watch you do this? Because I have next 4 weeks off and, this will help dispel any fears I have of the experience because I hadn't really been on a set in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, well, you know what? Why don't you put this on? The mask.
You're kidding.
I don't know if you can see back here.
Yeah, there it is.
3 masks back there.
Yeah. For those of you who are listening and not watching, Nick just pointed to some display cases behind him that have the Michael Myers masks.
Yes.
From various iterations of the character?
These 3 that I got from the last series that was done over the last, 7 years that David Gordon Green directed, but they had me on for some cameos. So I got a mask on each show.
Oh, cool.
The original mask, which I wish I had, I gave back to the company when I did Halloween 2 and never got it back.
Oh, somebody's online right now. Yes, right.
Right.
At any rate, so you're on the set. Can I hang around?
Yeah, so, and it was, everyone gives me a lot of love for this thing, but, when you put on a mask and walk around and you have no lines,
yes,
it's pretty easy to do. It's pretty damn easy. So I take I take it for what it is and I have fun with it. But, John just told me, here, Nick, okay. And he would call out, from behind the camera sometimes, Nick, okay, come out now. Okay, walk across the street. I actually asked him once, John, how do you want me to do this? Your first time you see him head to toe, and he's walking towards the victim. Yeah. I said, how do you want me to walk across the street? He said, just get over there and walk. He had too much to think about.
Yeah. The life of the director, yes.
Yeah.
What's my motivation? Right.
Yeah. Turned out to be lightning in a bottle. Everything he did was right. And it was a great success. And I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
And he did this iconic score for the movie in 3 days. It's still like one of the great scores of all time.
He composed it.
Yeah. He was a composer too.
For an orchestra?
He did it all synth.
Oh.
He's famous for the synth work he's done. And he continues to do it to this day with his kids.
Oh.
They do a lot of albums about themes for movies is basically
Right. Oh, well, next time we do a con together, if John's there, let's say hello, because I've never met him.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I've sort of walked by him a couple of times, but I've never really said hello.
Yeah.
So you're in John's movie. That was not necessarily an entree for you, but then you worked on a movie with him. You worked on Escape from New York, that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and Big Trouble?
All I did there was do the title song with him in post-production.
Were they in any way an entree for you into directing?
The Escape from New York was, because it was a pretty good hit and people knew that. So when I was mounting ideas for my directorial debut, because I had been a writer and have some credits, I could use that and John's recommendation. I got actually John, I wrote the letter.
Yeah.
Said, Nick Kessel's the greatest person in the world.
Right.
Sign it, John. I used that to get my first film, which was, again, one of these crazy Hollywood stories. My next door neighbor said, hey, Nick, will you write a treatment for free? You can attach yourself as director of this idea I have. And I went, oh, not again. Yeah, okay. So I did it and it became, they got the money and there we were. There I was shooting a movie.
Wow.
With Bobby Carradine.
Right. Linda
Hamilton's first movie. It was a fun little lark, all shot on the UCLA campus, called Tag the Assassination Game. And I actually just did some commentary for it because it's going to have a new DVD release pretty soon.
Oh, great. That's fabulous. Fun. Yeah. But then you moved on to Starfighter, et cetera, and your career was established.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of history,
yes,
I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the time that we worked together, because it was such an unusual set of circumstances. It was a musical for television as a series.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit about the genesis of it? It was called Shangri-La Plaza.
Yes. First of all, it came from a great relationship I had at the time with the head of CBS Studios. He had been the head of a studio that produced my movie TAP, T-A-P, with Gregory Hines and Sammy Davis Jr. about tap dancing and stuff like that. So he released that. He loved it. And when he became head of CBS, he actually got in touch with me and said, we're calling filmmakers because we want some new ideas. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you're interested in doing that, you know? And I said, let me get back to you. I've been speaking with a composer friend of mine, Craig Saffin,
right,
and a real close friend, lyricist Mark Muller, for a while about doing musicals. Because actually coming out of film school, that's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And from my background, as
given your dad, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to be the modern Vincent Minnelli, you know, but at the time, there was really no interest in.
They weren't making those movies, no.
No, I'm happy to see that there's been some great attempts at new stuff, you know, lately.
A real renaissance in a way, absolutely.
This gave me an opportunity to go pitch an idea. I said, we came up with this idea of doing an opera, basically no dialogue or little dialogue, that was set in a mini mall in the valley in Los Angeles, where the characters had their lives and their loves and their passions and their work. They're very working class little neighborhood.
Yeah.
But they all sang
everything.
Yeah. Sang and danced.
Recitative and aria.
Yes,
in the opera language, yeah.
Yes. So I said, this will never go, but we went to him. We came up with a few songs to show him. We sang the songs and told him, he said, God, that's either the craziest thing I'll ever do and I'll get fired, or it'll be great. Well, it turned out to be somewhere in between.
Yeah, right.
We did get to do it, which was amazing.
Yes.
It was very expensive for the day because, you know, it just was a lot of rehearsal, a lot of time that you wouldn't normally have on a, you know, was it an hour show, I think.
It must have been, yeah.
Yeah.
Particularly the pilot.
Yeah. We had some great performers and, you know, we had great choreographers and...
We had Michael Jackson's choreographer.
Great choreographer. Yeah. You got to dance.
I got to dance. Well, I never had so much fun, I'm telling you. And that great number that they had for me, was a great comedy number about, you know, a guy who's pining for the days in Argentina when people could be assassinated for not paying their rent.
And that's what and you were the person that collected the rent.
Yes, right.
For the mini mall.
Yes, right. Oh, I had such a great time.
But you also owned the video store.
Yes, right. The video store owner, but who had visions of killing off his renters if they didn't pay. Yeah,
exactly.
So great. And with a little dance. It was so great. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I do have a question that I ask everybody.
Okay.
And here's the final question. If there's a moment in your life in the recent past or any time where you're sitting somewhere and there's a smell or a taste or a meal that takes you back to when you were a kid, what would that be?
This last week, I was coming back from something, was famished, and I got to have something. I got some bread. I put some salami in it, and I went, God damn, I'm still eating the salami.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
That food and memory somehow blend together almost all the time. I know they do for me.
What a great show you have. Yeah, this is a wonderful way to connect people with their past, and that's a special way to do it.
Yeah, because food is community, and it's about our lives.
Yeah.
So with that, Nick Castle, I want to thank you for joining me on Cooking by Heart.
Thank you, Chris. We'll see you at the next Comic-Con.
Okay. Oh, and in the meantime, think about this. If there's a recipe, because you say there's something you still make, I'd love to have it because I post recipes from all of my guests.
Okay, cool.
All right?
We'll do.
I'll get back in touch. All right. Thank you, Nick. Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.